Hi crafters, this is Raquel from Paints and Glitter here today with ScrapbookPal. I'm coming along with this adorable collection from Lawn Fawn. This is called Treat Cart and I'm using it with a little add-on set of stamps and dies that's called Smoothies and Juice. So there are other alternatives, but here as you can see there are some darling little images included, a lot of little sentiments that you can mix and match. And the little add-ons allow you to create a fruit themed little cart or card. So what I'm doing first is that I'm actually going to be cutting out all of the little images from this collection with the dies included. These are going to be cut out of 300 GSM card, and in the background you may notice that I do have a stamp platform. I initially thought that that was going to be how I would stamp all of these images, but I soon realized that I didn't prefer that. I really liked using the smaller stamp blocks in my collection and just individually stamping the small images onto those die cut pieces. I just found that to be much easier. So I did select a very good black ink, which happens to be Intense Black Alcohol Friendly ink from Be Creative. So this is a really nice sharp black ink, and as you can tell there, now I've stamped out the little cart and it gives you a super nice clear image, perfect for alcohol coloring. So once I have gathered all of the images and I keep stamping out however many I want of each, then I go over to my Copics and I start selecting the colors I want to use. So for this little bunny, I'm using R20, R02, and also this lighter cream color that you'll see in a moment. And what I start to do is just adding the color, in this instance, from right to left, and I'm going from dark to light. So the E21 is going to be the lightest color. It's kind of like a creamy color, and that's the one that I'm going to be using the most for this particular bunny. So I do a little bit of stippling, and I also start dragging the color from the edge of that stamped image toward the, starting from the right to the left, and that's because of how I want to have the little highlight on the belly and on parts of the face. So you can do that with each image. Just select a trio of colors that you prefer. For every little image there, I'll be using the ones that I think will look cute. And for instance, for this little bear, I'm using some creams and also this color, which is E70 from Copic, and it happens to be a little bit on the rosy side, but I'm also complementing that with a brown that's E35. And again, I'm just going along the little edges of the image and the little places where I think that a shadow would look good. So because this has a more of a rounder face for that little bear, then I also added a little bit of that brown toward the top part of his little face. And then with E53, I'll be blending out that brown color and also omitting certain little areas, as I mentioned before, like the little belly, for instance, and the center of the face right above the nose to create the illusion of a highlight, and then revisiting the different colors depending on how light or how dark I want that image to look in the end. But that's what's wonderful about alcohol colors, is that you can also keep blending them out to your heart's content, but you don't want to oversaturate the paper, of course. And this is just smooth white cardstock. It's nothing special or anything. It's just really nice heavy card. So here is the little sign that's included in this collection. What's really fun about this, by the way, is that there are little stamps that you can use on the center of that little sign. And so for instance, here I'm just coloring the outer edge with different neutral colors. By the way, I will have a blog post, and on that blog post over at ScrapbookPal, which I invite you to read, I will have the listing of the colors used on some of these images so that you can refer to them. If not, then feel free to leave me a comment. I'll be more than happy to respond. But this darker brown here is an E37, but you can do, of course, a combination of either browns or blues or grays. This is E33. I'm using it to blend out that darker brown, again leaving some little spots where I don't add color just to act as a highlight. And the cart, which is one of the main components of this adorable little collection, is where you get to place all of your little ice cream or your little fruits. And for that, I'm starting off with a very light blue, then following that with a more turquoise blue. This happens to be BG15. And then with a very dark navy, which is B99. I'm only visiting the very outer edges of this little cart, and I'll be blending that out, but I'm also using it as a shadow, so I'm applying it right underneath that little canopy, for instance. So what you see me do there is to start blending that out with the BG15. It helps to kind of carry the color away from those edges and also start to lighten it gradually, which is what's really fun about alcohol coloring. So that way you don't get stark lines. So here with a BG10, which is the lightest blue that I'll be using on this particular cart, then I get to blend everything out. And if you're not familiar with alcohol coloring, initially it can look a little bit messy before it dries, but I promise you that if you apply it with more of a heavy hand, for instance, when you're blending, then you will get a really smooth coloring in the end. So that was BG10 again for the canopy. For the wheels, I'm using V12. I'm also using a combination of V12 and BG10 for the one of the stripes there of the canopy, and you can have a lot of fun, of course, with this portion because you can use as many colors as you like. And of course, you can go back and forth however you need to create shadows, but you don't have to apply a ton of color to get a really good effect. But here with BV01, I'm adding yet another bit of a violet color. Then with Y21, I'm now switching over to a little yellow. And then with RV21, I'm adding a bit of pink. Super cute, and that was so easy. Now I'm moving over to the little fox. This is BV02. That's the darkest color I'll be using here. And if you don't like violets, you can certainly use some grays. I would recommend N2 or N4 as a gray for this little fox if you'd like to. And I think it is a fox, or maybe it's a raccoon. I don't know. But you could use oranges if you'd like to. I just thought purples would be fun, but you can mix and match however you like to. Again, these are just little suggestions, and because this is such a whimsical collection of stamps, then and really any color is fine. There is no wrong way to do this, but this is B60, and that is the lightest color I'll be using here. Then applying it to the portions of the face and the belly, and again leaving a little bit of white here and there. That completed the coloring on these little characters. It was a lot of fun to just go ahead and be playful with the coloring on all of these. And there's my little bowl with a bunch of little pieces that I went ahead and colored and cut out. I just had tons of fun picking little items. So from Honeybee Stamps, I happen to have this piece here. There are two different stamps, I'm sorry, dies that I'll be using. That's going to create the base of this card. So with the one rectangular die, as you can tell, I went ahead and cut an aperture into one of those stamp shaped little pieces of paper. And then I just used the rectangle on its own and cut out a third piece. So I'm going to show you how I'm going to be using these to create this adorable little card. And I will have the name of that die set listed. It's actually a Christmas die. However, you can, as you can tell, use it year round for whatever you like to. So now that I have that aperture cut into that background, and the way that I did that was to just use my cutting plate to only cut up until that edge that I wanted to omit, so I didn't have to cut through the entire thing. I now just created some score lines. And as you can see there, one of them attaches the aperture and the other one's right in the center of it. And now I get to fold that away. And I'll also be making sure that I fold and crease the fold lines. So I'm just using this paper burnishing tool to make sure that I have a valley fold and a mountain fold. I will be assembling these together, but I did want to share with you that that simple rectangle will be the uppermost layer. But before assembling these, I am going to be taking some sky blue premium dye ink from Pink Fresh Studio. I'm using this on the singular panel that will be the inside of the card, and using one of these darling large brushes from Pink Fresh Studio also. They're actually a set of 3 blending brushes. You can go ahead and apply ink to a panel. So for instance, here I'm directing the ink more toward the center, and it's so light and subtle, but I'm also going to be using this as if it were the skyline of the panel that will be on the very front of the card. So using the smaller rectangle, I'm applying the ink from the outer edge in. This is going to give me a very soft and pretty background. And now I'm going to actually take a different brush and I'm going to switch over to the second color, which is Fresh Pear. And I'm going to apply it in a circular fashion, the same way as I did the blue, being a little bit heavier toward the outer edge and then working toward the center of this little rectangular panel. So you can keep visiting this however many times you like, depending on how dark you want it to be. But I didn't want this to be too dark for this particular make, just because I wanted it to remain nice and delicate in color, and I really like the results of those little colors with those brushes. Now I will start adhering the second panel that I had cut into using that rectangular die to create an aperture. So as you can tell, I'm only adhering the outer edge. That's going to match perfectly with the solid one because it was, of course, cut using the same die. So I'm just making sure that all of the edges match and just pressing that until it dries. Now on that outer panel here, the one that creates the aperture, I'm only applying adhesive on the bottom folded portion. I'm going to place my little rectangular panel right on top, making sure that the edges match perfectly, and also making sure that the green portion faces the opening and the blue portion faces the top. And here is where I get to now have some fun playing with all of these little die cut pieces. As you can see there, I'm creating a little menu board. That was another little die that was included, as well as stamp from this collection. And I'm also making sure to take advantage of some of the dimensional adhesives from ScrapbookPal to add dimension. So for this one, I'm actually going to be popping out the cart just to call a little more attention to that and add a little bit of shadow. And then I'm going to start adorning this with all sorts of little ice cream bowls. This is the collection that I decided to use for this particular card. But of course, you have a plethora of choices here. So, of course, depending on how many you decide to cut out and how many colors and everything, it's going to be a lot of fun to play with. So, here I'm placing the sign on the upper left hand corner of this. So, they will be overlapping the little rectangle slightly, but because there's a larger base right behind it, then it's okay to do that and place your little die cuts a little bit off the page. I just think it adds a bit of whimsy and fun, especially for something so playful as this Lawn Fawn collection. So I did place a little bottle there, maybe you can notice on the cart, and that one actually reads fudge, so I thought that was really cute, and so I colored it brown for that reason and then added a little red on the label. Then each little character here got a bit of a collection of different ice creams, which of course you can color in any combination that you like. I just selected different pinks, oranges, blues from my collection of Copic markers. So whatever pleases you is what you can use. And of course, layering these onto the little arms of the little critters just makes it super cute. So the little bunny here, for instance, I'm going to be adding a tiny little drop of adhesive to, and then placing one of the ice cream cones. And because there is a separate little stamp and die for the layers, then of course you can create a very tall ice cream cone, so why not? And then I just switch the different colors of each little ice cream scoop, and that made it a lot of fun. I also added a tiny little spoon. And by the way, the dies in this collection allow you to cut into, of course, to create these images. It does leave a white border. So if you'd like to, you can do as I have here, which is that I've taken a select few of these die cut pieces and fussy cut around them so that the white portion wouldn't be so big. So here I'm just taking a very small circle. It's about 1 inch in diameter and placing one of the little banana split dishes on top. This is going to help hold this card open. So what I did is that I first opened it up and took some of the stamps in the collection, and they do allow you to create different sentiments. So that's why that first one only had 2 words. And here what it's going to spell out is have the sweetest day. So what I've done here is made sure that it fit the inside of the card first, and that's where the little blocks can come in handy, and then you get to place the sentiments wherever you like. Now, what I decided to do here also is to place that little banana split on the inside, right in the middle there, with a dimensional dot. And that way, when the recipient opens the card, they can hold it open with that little element. The other thing that I did was to add a bit more highlight, as you can see, with a white gel pen from Nuvo. And lastly, I also added some Nuvo glitter drops in the color White Blizzard. It doesn't actually have white in it, despite the name. It's just a clear drop that has tons of little speckles of holographic glitter, and I really love using it. So that completed this card, but I wanted to add a little bit more detail and shadow. So I used G12, which is a very light pastel, to add the shadow as if it were little bits of grass underneath each one of these little images. And then I also decided to adorn the inside of the card with more little dots. So I again selected the same markers that I had used to color the different images. And you're going to see a little something special here. So that orange, by the way, was Y38. And here the blue. I wanted to show you. I accidentally had the marker leak, a big drop there. So I decided, okay, I cannot say that this is a ruined card. I really want to finish it and use it. So what I did was that I matched the drop that was the accident or the oopsie, and I took my markers and drew more drops on the inside, and I also took the white gel pen and drew a little heart on that blue dot. And then I also took the smallest little heart stamp available in this collection and stamped onto all of those little drops that I created. And that saved this card. So I wanted to leave that in this video so that you can see that sometimes you make a little oopsie. These things cannot be prevented always, but it doesn't mean you can't continue to have fun and craft and just, come up with a new design. So there are 2 more little popsicles. These are the results, and there's a second card there to the right, so you can see that there are more options. And by the way, that cart actually on the second card will move back and forth, so that'll be on my channel if you want to take a peek at it. Please remember to subscribe, like the video, come over to the blog. So if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe to ScrapbookPal and visit the blog as well. I hope that you can be inspired and be blessed. Thank you so much for watching.